Okay, it is the top of the hour. Let's jump into the Gen Z effect on leadership and workplace culture. Before we do that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Catherine Mattice. I am the founder and CEO of Civility Partners, the author of Navigating a Toxic Workplace for Dummies. I have been cited in all sorts of cool places over the years. Civility Partners has been in business for 17 years. I have over 3 million global learners on LinkedIn Learning. I've got 60 courses there in tons of languages. Love seeing everybody here and commenting on where they're from. Civility Partners does 5 things. We do workforce surveys. We have our own proprietary workplace assessment. It is not an engagement survey. It looks at engagement as well as many other things that are relevant to company culture. We then create action plans for our clients through, looking at the data, figuring out what to do with it. We certainly deliver tons of training programs on all sorts of topics for any level of an organization. We engage in specialized coaching for toxic rock stars, those leaders who are considered highly valuable because they get results, but they're also creating some drama and trauma. And lastly, we do conflict mediation and/or resolution, depending on what the conflict entails. And we can do that one-on-one for individuals, teams, departments, geographic location. So we got a lot going on here. The last thing I'll say as I introduce us is we have served almost 300 clients over the years, ranging in a huge array of industries. And so if you have some sort of specific problem in your organization where you feel like this is unique to my industry, I'm going to guess maybe not. Where there's people, there are problems. And as gray area as people's behavior is, it tends to unfold in kind of all the same way. Hi, Elizabeth. I'm also in San Diego. So wanted to let you know you've got to stick out to the stick out. You've got to stay here until the end. Stick it out until the end. And we will be raffling off 3 winners for the book. And we will also have 2 winners of our online Upstander training toolkit. So the way this works is you have to chat with me. I love interacting with the chat. I want to be very interactive. Do not hold questions till the end. And put your questions in the chat now or all throughout the presentation. I have the chat wide open and ready to talk with you. So let's make this interactive. And then at the end, Jenny and Favor, my marketing dream team, will kind of assess who's been the most talkative in the chat. And that's how you can sort of enter to win one of these prizes. Okay. Sorry, I was watching the chat here. Okay, good. I love it. Thank you. Keep it coming. Let's keep talking to each other. So we're going to talk about the values and expectations that Gen Z brings to the workplace. And certainly they are influencing culture. You all know that. That's why you're here. We're going to talk about some work norms that Gen Z is just not interested in tolerating. So I think there's a lot of bad work norms, things that aren't working anymore, things that are broken. And Gen Z just says, I'm not doing that. So they're really making us take a good hard look at ourselves. Thank you, Edgar. I appreciate that. Edgar says, Catherine's amazing, knowledgeable expert. Thank you, Edgar. And then lastly, we'll talk about some different leadership practices. So attend this with an open mind. It doesn't matter how you feel about Gen Z. I know they have some stereotypical sort of characteristics that people have applied to Gen Z. And really what it's about is that Gen Z has decided work has to change or I'm not interested. And they've got everybody listening because they are infiltrating our workforce. So these are sort of stereotypical, right? We know baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, traditionalists. We sort of stereotype characteristics around them. And we'll talk a little bit about that. The generations are generally, in terms of why certain years are picked, generally the divide comes from pop culture, technological changes, and things happening in the world. So those are sort of the 3 categories that experts are looking at when they're dividing up the years. So I'm curious who we have here. Are you actually, let me, and it assumes an American point of view. This is true. These are definitely kind of American generated. I'm curious, who are you on this list? So I'm a Gen X. Okay, okay. Do we have any Gen Zs since I'll be here talking about you? We've got a couple Gen Zs. All right. I'm firmly millennial. Okay, okay. Thank you, Gen Y. All right. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm curious about your interactions with Gen Z. Which one of these applies to you? Are you Gen Z? If you already said that, great. Do you manage Gen Z employees? You work alongside them? Maybe Gen Z hasn't gotten into your workforce yet. Okay, lots of people managing them and working alongside them. So you're here to understand them. Perfect, perfect. All right. Thank you. Love it. Love the chat coming through. And what narratives about Gen Z have you heard? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. They're not motivated. They don't want to work. They're entitled. They're too sensitive. They can't focus. They're lazy. They want constant feedback. They have something to say. They're job hoppers. No backbone. Oh goodness. Hopefully Gen Z's on here. Don't be deterred. We are going to correct some of these stereotypes. They're diverse. I saw argumentative come through. They won't look you in the eye. They think differently. Indeed. They live life like a reality show. They need constant education. Indeed, I always say about one of my team members that the minute she stops learning is the minute she leaves me. So it keeps me on my toes. I got to learn so I can keep elevating myself so that she can keep elevating herself. So you all are on the right track. When you type in Gen Z R, here are some of the various things that are coming up. And I like how they are pulling people up, not being woke. Wants answers fed to them instead of researching the answer. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for all of that. So you all have sort of proven my point. We got a lot to learn about Gen Z because I notice out of all of your comments that came through, maybe 2% of them were more positive or neutral. For example, progressive. I saw focused come through. But a lot of these things, like entitled, they don't want to work, lazy, all of that is obviously not a great look. And so that's why we're here. We need to rethink these sort of negative stereotypes that we have for Gen Z. Okay, 75% of managers don't understand what Gen Z needs. 70% of managers think Gen Z lacks work ethic. 45% of hiring managers say Gen Z is the most challenging generation to work with, and 40% of leaders think Gen Z graduates are not prepared for the workforce. Some more, I love my stats. So we start off with stats. Some issues that arise between Gen Z and older employees, according to managers, what managers are observing. There's conflicts about attitudes and expectations, communication issues, differing priorities, clashing over work styles, so conflicting views on social issues. So lots of, miscommunication happening. Shelley says, I'm used to people jumping in and trying without a lot of hand holding. Yeah. Generations are called lazy because they want a 5-day work week. Each generation adds their own value. Yeah, I mean, as we do this, let's just remember that every single generation coming into the workforce has been sort of pushed back on or gotten some negative stereotypes. Um, from the older generation. So this is nothing new, this idea of here comes a new generation. They want something different than what we've had or what's been normal for us, and how dare they? But this isn't new. Every generation we're in, the previous generation was annoyed by us, right? this is an interesting stat from Deloitte, or an interesting research study. So the gap between what respondents believe their managers should do versus what they actually do. So if we look, or just focusing on Gen Z, that's the blue. If we look to the far, actually, I'll just use my arrow. If we look at this one here, so there's some great alignment there between what Gen Z believes and what they actually experience in terms of getting, having daily oversight. But then if you look at this one here, provide guidance and support to team members, we've got 33% saying that's the actual experience, but 60% of them are saying I need more guidance. Inspire and motivate the team. 28% of Gen Zs, that's their actual experience, that they're feeling inspired and motivated. But they believe 51% of them are saying that's what we need. So there's a lot of disconnect between what Gen Zs need and what Gen Zs are getting. But if you look at the green, it's not all that different. I mean, Gen Z and millennials match up here. Gen Z or millennials also want guidance and support, but feel like they're not getting it. And down here, similar information. Millennials want boundaries and a work-life balance, but they're not actually getting it, right? So yes, everybody does, and that's what's interesting, Jennifer. Yes, everybody wants guidance and support. We just need it in different ways. And that's some of the danger of generational stereotypes, right? Because we can say, well, all Gen Zs are this way or all millennials are that way. But we also know they're not, right? Everybody is a unique individual. Yeah, I think to your point, Cindy, Gen Z will tell you they aren't happy. Gen Z speaks up. That is a key component of this webinar. They're not going to tolerate bad behavior at work. Okay, so some Gen Zs are doing something called conscious unbossing. 36% of them expect that they'll eventually need to take on a management role, but 16% of Gen Zs flat out refuse. And 69% perceive middle management as a role characterized by high stress level and minimal rewards. And they're not wrong, right? So what's happening is Gen Z has observed the people ahead of them, their older generations in the workplace. They've watched their parents and their aunts and uncles be in high stress workplaces, overworked, working on vacations, and they're just saying, no way, not doing it. And can you blame them? So it's kind of interesting. As much as we are sort of pushing back on Gen Z's point of view, they actually have a pretty important point of view. And I think it's worth looking at, which is why we're having this webinar. Only 6% of Gen Z say their primary career goal is to reach a leadership position. They don't want to be leaders. So what's happening is we're not going up the chain anymore. We're not going up the corporate ladder. That's not, so the way corporations are structured has to change. Great question, Jennifer. Don't you worry. We'll get that answered. So why the shift? So again, a lot of younger professionals have watched their managers and parents burn out, work long hours, work on vacation, all these things, be on their cell phones and absorbing blame. So all of this, for example, obviously my Instagram feed is full of toxic work environment stuff because that's what we're into at Civility Partners. And so many people out there talking about a toxic work environment. So many people hate their job. In fact, 80% of people have hated their job at least one point in their life. But then we're mad that Gen Z says, I'm not doing that anymore, right? They don't want to live their life unhappily. And yes, I agree with you, Jennifer. Toxic is overused. But I also think toxic refers to anything that causes harm, and anything like no work-life balance or a yelling boss or a bullying boss. That's all, that's all toxic. So I agree with you. And also, I think part of the reason it's overused is because it's not that far off from the truth. So Gen Z isn't interested in chasing a title. So us older generations, it's like you get promoted, right? You're on an upward trajectory. You get out of college or you join the workforce, you're low level, you move up, you supervise, you become a manager, you become a leader. Maybe you move, the only reason you move positions or move to a new employer is to get more pay and maybe an even better title. And that idea of the upward trajectory is not going to work. Now, let's think about what Gen Z has grown up with. We grew up, I'm a Gen X, so I grew up with two parents who worked, who were sort of focused on overworking, having money to do things. And by the way, Gen X, myself, is really the first generation to really truly have two working parents where that was normal. Previous generations, it was normal to have one working parent, right? Um, so so our job, our goal growing up was to kind of go up this ladder. But if you think about what Gen Z has grown up with, they've grown up with things like Instagram influencers, Justin Bieber posting something on YouTube and becoming famous over it. That so they see that there's all these other paths. You don't have to have a 9 to 5 to live the American dream. And in fact, because of technology, which they have had since the moment they were born, they've had the internet. They have access to the entire world in their formative years. Something my generation didn't have. We didn't have the internet until probably college is when I really started understanding what the internet even was. So I didn't grow up with a view to the entire world the way that Gen Z does. Now I can look on my phone, scroll through Instagram, and see the whole world within the next 5 minutes. Obviously, that's an exaggeration, but I can learn about news from Gaza. I can learn about some CEO who did this, that, and the other thing. I can, like, so much information that of course, their idea of life is very kind of all over the place. It's not going up the corporate ladder. So Gen Z also grew up in a world where conversations about mental health and trauma were already in the mainstream. Something else I see in my Instagram, I'm sure you do as well. Lots of talk about toxic work environments, about being pushed too far, about mental health during COVID. Our kids are growing up with talks about workplace, or not workplace bullying, talks about bullying in elementary school. We didn't have conversations about bullying when I was in elementary school. So those of us who are maybe annoyed at Gen Z, we have made them that way because of the technology we've created, the programs we put in place, emotional intelligence. We didn't talk about that when I was a kid. We talk about it now, right? So we have given them windows into the world that none of us had before. Let's see, I'm going to check in the chat here because I've been yammering on. Every negative experience in life isn't trauma. Very true, Michelle. I don't think Gen Z is claiming that. Let's see, no one wants stress and overworking for success. I don't blame them for not wanting to glamorize it. They're teaching us to set boundaries, take vacation, and prioritize our mental health. That is correct. Let's see. Yep, Gen Z is happy to talk about mental health. The side hustle economy is a survival strategy. Yeah, wages haven't increased. The amount you earn right out of college is a lot lower than it used to be. In fact, college degree, in a lot of ways may be irrelevant. That's a conversation going on right now. Let's see. I think the juxtaposition is that they've grown up more connected via the internet and yet less connected in person. Yeah, that's great. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, bullying happened to Gen X, but we weren't talking about it. There weren't programs on bullying, right? In fact, I did a little talk to my daughter's fifth grade class last year on bullying. It was kind of like, come talk to us about what you do for a living. And so I talked about, hey, bullying exists in adulthood too, and here are some tools and resources for bullying at your age and into the future. And they all had already heard everything. Literally, the teacher was like, they already knew all that. Thanks for coming. I was like, here, I thought I was saying something really amazing. Yeah. Okay. So fulfillment looks different. It just looks different. Gen Z is looking for a happy life. They don't want to live the life of hating their job. I mean, I think about a lot of the movies that came out when I was a kid, like 9 to 5 was popular. Lots of movies with Demi Moore and what's his name? Michael Douglas. There are lots of movies about terrible bosses, right? And then, so they don't want to live that anymore. Carla, I see you have your hand raised. If you want to put that in the chat, whatever your question is, I will be happy to answer it. So Gen Z wants a soft life, quote unquote. This is not bad. Look at this slide. I would love to live a life like this. And in fact, I kind of do. I own my own business. I can, I mean, within reason, sort of come and go as I choose. I have 2 young kids that I have shared 50-50 with my ex-husband. So I have to leave early sometimes to go pick them up. What's wrong with this life? Let's not get mad at Gen Z for staking a claim and saying, this is the life I want to live, right? This slide looks like retirement. Gigi, or no, who said that? Michelle. Michelle, what generation are you? Let's see. Do you see situations where conversations around mental health can sometimes make it harder to give or receive feedback? I want to be clear that this isn't about stereotyping, but understanding how we can continue to build workplaces that are supportive of mental health and open to healthy, constructive feedback. What a great question, Hanli. And let's talk about it. I love your point. I do. Two comments there. One is sometimes I see victimhood as a bullying tactic. So you have somebody who consistently complains. They're sort of constantly, my head hurts, it's too bright, that person's perfume is too strong. And it's hard to empathize with people like that when it's like every mark something is wrong, right? So researchers call that a bully victim, somebody who's using that victimhood to do the same thing a more overt bully does, control the situation, get people to pay attention to them and acknowledge them. It's like the same motivators, but a different tactic. The other thing is you are allowed to, as an employer, give employees feedback, right? So if somebody is really claiming like, this causes me anxiety when you give me feedback, and it sort of becomes a pattern, then I think that becomes a performance conversation because you cannot have a collaborative work environment. You can't, it's affecting the organization's ability to move forward if somebody's not able to take feedback. So hopefully I'm answering your question, and I'd be curious to hear what others have to say. Jennifer says, this is feminine. I can't imagine my husband wanting a spa day. Ooh, Jennifer, you know what? I get my nails done at the same nail salon about every 2 or 3 weeks. There is almost 100% of the time, there is at least one man in there getting a pedicure. So let's see. My husband loves a pedi. See, Brenda's there with me. Negative or constructive is your comment back to me. Yeah, I think negative feedback certainly does cause anxiety. Constructive feedback is important, and constructive feedback can certainly give people anxiety too. So then we got to circle back to every organization needs to be training not just managers, but the entire organization on how to give and receive feedback. That's one of our most requested training programs at Civility Partners, that everyone at every level has the right and ability to give feedback, whether it's to their teammate or a manager, and that everybody's got to get good at receiving that feedback as well. Yes, every leader should be trained to be a coach. Who doesn't like beautiful toes and feet? Yes. Okay. Yes, spa days also include massages. Thank you for that, Gigi. Okay, the other thing is, and I think you all said this earlier, the Gen Z workforce is more diverse, and in fact, the world is becoming more diverse. We are moving more towards less divide between races. Back when I took intercultural communication in grad school, they were calling it the Browning of America. I don't know if that's PC now to say, but the idea is that we are intermingling more as races, and eventually, probably not in our lifetimes, but potentially in Gen Z lifetimes, there'll be a lot less white people because of everybody mixing together. So we are moving in that direction. So we are diversifying our gene pool. Yes, I like it. Okay, so so let me explain the QR code to you. If you hold your phone up, do the QR code, it's going to take you to a um, page where you can type in your information and get several resources. One of those resources is this team exercise you can do called Showing Compassion. So we have a whole booklet of different sort of conversational starters for leaders to use with their teams. And one of them, this is one of the pages out of that booklet on showing compassion. So if you want the resources that I'm going to be talking about all throughout, you can just get the QR code, and now you have all the resources. You'll see the QR code a few more times, and of course, you'll also see it at the end. Jenny has put that in the chat as well. So just know we've got a lot of ways for you to get the resources from this webinar. Okay, so let's talk about technology and communication. Who is willing to be a technology leader? Would you be comfortable mentoring an older coworker? This is from Gen Z, and 22% said no. And let me see, a female, 22% of females, 22% of males. Could you picture yourself as a digital ambassador or technology savvy employee who would be responsible for learning and promoting new technology to other employees? So Gen Z is kind of saying no. 30% roughly is saying, no, I wouldn't do that. And so that's something to be thinking about. You've all said it yourself that, they bring some real tech savviness because they've had it in their hands. I mean, you see a 2-year-old in the airport carrying around the little iPad, with the little cartoon character case around it. So technology is a lot more natural for them, right? So let's lean into that. It is interesting to think. I mean, I think about back when I first got a cell phone, a little flip phone, and that was in college. Okay. Um, Considering someone had said this, they've grown up with access to the world, but not really access to each other because they're on things like social media and text messaging. So, this is the way Gen Z, according to research, likes to be communicated with. So they like instant messaging for quick updates. They like email for those professional boundaries. I think these are rules for all of us. And like just thinking of my own team, we instant message to have a quick conversation as if the person was in the office, right? That sort of mirrors that. But if I have some big long thing to say or some directive to give or want to have some bigger conversation, I would probably move that over to email. Face-to-face communication, they do want face-to-face communication. They want it to be authentic. And then visual and concise styles that they want, emojis, quick videos and things. So I think this isn't all that far off from everybody else. But I'd be curious to hear what you think. They won't use the phone. I did read some research once, Mark, that if you call Gen Z before texting them to let you know you're calling, that they take that as like a violation of their personal space. Let's see. Gen Z does not want the extra work without additional compensation, which doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. Yeah, Gen Z, like any of us, we want to be valued at work. The problem with the previous generations is we haven't really had the voice to really stake a claim. But Gen Z, as a group, is saying, I'm going to be valued and I don't have to work in my same town. I can work anywhere, right? So they have kind of sort of grown up in the working world with more access to more employers in a way that we didn't. Back in the day, you worked where you lived. Jamie, these slides will not be shared, but if there's something specific you're looking for, by all means, email us at info@Civility Partners and we can send you, the piece that you're looking for. Let's see. Gen X are tech savvy. It's not fair to assume that we need Gen Zs to assist us. Fair point. I mean, I'm fairly tech savvy, I think. I'm not saying we need them. I'm just saying they, and I mean, anybody. Again, this is sort of general commentary, right? There are certainly plenty of Gen Xers and baby boomers. Steve Jobs understood tech more than anybody, right? Like nothing to do with age. So, it's just thinking about how can we lean into some of the skills that they may have that maybe others don't. And it could be with anybody, right? Yes, Alicia, here. Unions aren't needed if you run the company right. I'm not a huge fan of unions. Okay, Gen Z is often labeled tech savvy, yet many take a cautious approach to generative AI. So a little tidbit of info for you. 48% feel prepared for AI adoption. Only 35% report having clear organizational guidelines, even as half already use AI. So, note to self outside of Gen Z, every organization needs a AI policy. If you don't have one or you haven't provided the AI tool you want people to use, they're uploading proprietary information into ChatGPT or Claude. And so it's very important that every employer give their workforce a designated, here's where we want you to put things. Here's the large language model that we support. And let's not be putting things out there on the internet, right? Gen Z anxiety around AI, they're worried about it replacing entry level jobs, and that seems to be coming to fruition. Lots of things out there about people being laid off. It just means that we all need to get better at understanding how to use AI to our advantage, so that AI has to be a critical tool, just like communication has to be a critical tool. So I think AI is going to become sort of a basic um, requirement for any job as we move forward in the world of AI. 52% of Gen Z employees reported witnessing harassment, a rate higher than other generations. This is an interesting stat because I think uh, it doesn't mean harassment has gotten worse. I think it means Gen Z has a stronger understanding of what harassment is and less tolerance for it. So all the harassment that maybe some of us previous generations have been at the receiving end of or observed, we may not have considered it harassment because um, it was just sort of part of the normal work environment, right? So they have a heightened awareness of things like harassment and bullying. And they've been encouraged to speak up from a young age. They've grown up watching the consequences of silence, and they see work as an extension of their values. Now, consider this. Most of my work life, I went to work and then I went home. And although there might have been a little bit of intermingling, for the most part, they were separated. Over time, with technology and email and cell phones, that line has crossed even more, right? So my kids, for example, have watched me check my email while I'm laying in bed with them and they're finishing their homework and they say, "Okay, mom, I'm done with my homework. Let's hang out." And I'll say, "Give me 1 second to finish this email and send it off." So my child has witnessed me emailing, doing work at 10 o'clock at night as I'm laying in bed. So work and life are no longer different. They are one in the same. We have done that to Gen Z. We have made them that way. They have watched us on vacation, checking our emails or taking that one phone call. Mark says, "Stop when you're home, family first." Yes, Mark, I do absolutely. I don't work a whole lot when I have my kids, especially because I only have them 50-50. But if they're, finishing homework and not interacting with me, I'm going to fire off that email. Also, it's my company, so it's not always really work for me, but might be different for the rest of you. So So again, so we have made them this way. You all have done this. You've all done work in front of your kids, right? You've all done work on vacation or in line at Starbucks or whatever. And so we have shown Gen Z that work and life are the same. They're intermingled now. It's just that's what we've showed. And so they're not going to they want the values. If what am I trying to say? If their personal life and their work life are so intermingled, then their values are going to stay the same, right? Thank you for, yeah, we've made them this way. We've created these monsters. Let's see. This is exactly it. That's not that Gen Z doesn't want to work hard. It's that they only want to work hard during work hours. Yeah, they want to have their Saturdays and Sundays off so they can go get a massage, right? So here's what I want to offer up. Because your Gen Z workforce is an upstander. They were born that way, or they've been molded into being upstanders. They're more overt, and they want to talk about injustice. They want to talk about politics. They want to talk about when somebody's wronged them. They want feedback that's constructive. So your newer generation, this Gen Z workforce, they're all upstanders. So I would suggest that the rest of you become upstanders too. And as you're all saying, we're not saying like push back on every little thing, but you've all said we just took it, right? We just took that extra jar, that manager role and got paid more, but we worked a lot harder and it wasn't that it wasn't that great or fulfilling and it burned me out. So we all need to be better upstanders. So I am offering up, so this is our upstander training that I'm offering you. And Jenny put the code there for you or the link there for you if you want to buy it. It's $250. This is a training that we charge our clients 700 or 7,500 for. And it has everything. It has our slides, it has our workbook, it has a facilitator's guide in there for you. It has videos from our trainers who have delivered this training program to all of our different clients. So I really encourage you to pick up the Upstander training. It's everything that we offer. Again, this is something we charge thousands for, and I'm offering it to you for $249. So you'll have all of the information to deliver Upstander training to your workforce because Gen Z is not going away. We all need to speak up more. Thank you, Betsy. Yes. So, Betsy, your parents maybe didn't teach you to speak up more, but now you and your entire workforce can learn how to speak up more with this program that we have. We put a lot of love into it for you. We've really tried to make it an important resource. Okay. So, beyond that strategy of training everybody to be an upstander, let's talk about how to work with Gen Z. If we can't beat them, join them, right? So, let me see, Deborah. I don't think upstander training was what it actually is. What I'm curious, Deborah, what do you mean? Let's discuss. Yeah, so this is about instead of being a bystander, which is kind of more passive, right? You watch something happen, you don't say anything. Being an upstander is the opposite. It's speaking up. And this training program has a variety of ways that to help train your workforce on different ways they can speak up that work for them. Okay, so if we can't beat them, join them. So we need to rebrand leadership. We're not climbing the ladder. Nobody wants to climb the ladder anymore. This is not going on a straight line, right? From starting your job until retiring as an executive VP. We're moving all over the place. So you want to rebrand leadership as not just a position that you get paid money for. It gives you influence, impact, you get to coach. So let's be careful about how we talk about leadership and kind of rebrand it and make it clear that leadership doesn't just mean a title. So that's one tip for you. You also need to do a workforce survey. And of course, we always suggest doing workforce surveys. By the way, I love that you're all talking to each other and learning from each other too. I just love that. Keep it going. I'm not the only one who knows stuff here. You all know things too. Yes. Okay. So doing a workforce survey. So these are the kinds of questions you want to get answered through your workforce surveys. Do employees get what they need from leaders? What do they actually need, and are they getting it? What's going to inspire them to step up instead of just decline that middle management position? What do leaders do that makes them want to work harder or makes them more frustrated? And how consistently do leaders model this behavior? I'll give you an example, a quick case study. We had a client where their original survey we did with them really showed that people didn't understand how to move forward in the organization or move up. They didn't get a lot of feedback. They didn't really understand the expectations of them in their role. After working with us for about 12 months, we shifted a lot of that, did some training, helped with the performance system. And then on the other side, we did another survey, and actually 100% of employees, unheard of, 100% of employees on the second survey said that they were inspired to do their best every day at work. And I think it was really tied to the fact that they were getting that feedback and expectations were clear. Let's see, workforce surveys are important. They got us to receive the Great Place to Work certification. Love that. Let's see, Matt, what about pulse? Oh, I got to catch up on the chat here. If you want survey engagement, then staff want to see the survey responses being used. Indeed. Let's see. Is that survey focused on direct supervisor or leadership in the organization in general? Well, I think it depends. So when we do surveys with clients, we're pretty clear with our language, right? So we have questions where we specifically say your direct manager, so the statement they're rating might be, my direct manager understands my work challenges, or I feel confident that my direct manager can solve an interpersonal team problem. But then we have other questions about leadership. So, we might call them the executive team or whatever the lingo is that the organization uses. We have questions like, I believe top leadership has my best interests at heart, or the top leadership team communicates effectively. So yeah, it can be a variety of things. We don't survey often, and when we do, we have poor responses. So is it Mish? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that is a common problem. We do surveys for clients, and because of the kind of communication chain that goes out as part of the survey, we are able to we've never had less than 85% response rate. And in fact, we've even had 99 response rate a couple of times. And so part of it is that you may have been doing surveys and nothing happened, so people stop trusting. It could be that they believe that their responses aren't anonymous. So there's a variety of reasons. So Mish, if you're interested in doing a workforce survey, I do hope you'll reach out because we can help you. We can absolutely help you do that. And yes, you have to act on them. Okay, Gen Z wants mentorship. They say a workplace mentor is crucial. And 52% report currently having a mentor, revealing a significant gap between what they need and what they're looking for. So 83% want a mentor, only 52% say they have one. So we need to make sure we're mentoring them. And yes, they can become future mentors. And you can have, different mentoring models. You could have sort of the senior employee to the junior employee. You could do reverse. You could have junior employees mentoring the senior employees on, what Gen Z is looking for, create some more understanding between those two generations. Same level mentorship or flash mentoring, where it's kind of like, here's one goal this person wants. This other person has that goal or has that skill. So let's have you spend 30 or 60 days together. So it doesn't have to be, I know, can you ever have enough mentors, right, Beth? I can count 5 on just off the top of my head. So there's probably more informal mentors in my life. So this kind of speaks to what I was talking about earlier, where the idea of going from the bottom to the top over the course of your career is disappearing. And that's not just because of Gen Z, it's because of technology. So this is a great article. I have the link there if you want to check it out. But this article talks about that in the olden days, I joke, the career stages, there was 4 stages: beginning, bottom, middle, top, and that was it. And then we started evolving into more about career choices where you could sort of be like, I'm going to go on a manager track or I'm going to go on a technical track. And so this idea of these four stages started to dissipate. Then we moved into career mosaic, where we're sort of working through the stages in different settings. Thinking of my mom, for example, she was a nurse in a hospital, worked in the emergency room, then switched to a different department, like doing active nursing in the hospital. Then she moved to home health. Then she moved to being a workers' comp nurse. And so she was moving through different stages, but different, they were different careers. She wasn't going from start to finish or from bottom to top, right? Jennifer, my mom was a nurse in the hospital for 20 years. My mom swears her claim to fame is she was the first nurse to wear pants to work at Kaiser Bellflower, because pants were not allowed, and they finally got permission to be able to wear pants. And she swears she was the first nurse to show up to work once that policy passed with her pants on. Yep, she sure did wear that white cap. Okay, so now we've moved into this personalized career. So you can do anything. You can say, and especially like COVID really showed us this too, right? I think COVID's part of the culprit of creating these monstrous Gen Zs that you're all complaining about. That people decided over COVID, like, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I've actually burned out on it now that I'm in COVID and I don't have to go to work. I can see that. So I'm going to decide to go back to school and do something different. Or I've decided that I also really like community theater. So I'm going to work less hours because I want to do these other things. And so we've really evolved into where the world is our oyster. The world is our oyster. Okay, so feedback for anybody, Gen Z's included, needs to be straightforward, immediate, conversation solutions focused. That's that whole constructive feedback thing, right? It's not you're wrong and you better fix it. It's let's talk about what happened. How can I support you in the future on this project? Let's look at mistakes as teachable moments and so on and so forth. Check in and follow up and reinforce the positive feedback. So here's a little tidbit for you. Um, so we get what we focus on, right? So a lot of managers are not focusing on the culture of their team until something bad happens. Then all of a sudden somebody comes to their office and says, we have a gossiper. There's lots of gossip in the team and I don't like it. Now we have to focus on culture because of that complaint. But if you're having positive conversations on the regular, it becomes harder for bad behavior to creep in because of the social norms. So creating those social norms. So to that end, another resource for you, again, this QR code is the same as the other QR code. It all takes you to the same place. Just want to offer this up. This is another resource that you can download if you go to that QR code. Jenny has also put the link in the chat. Okay, training and development. So considering technology and all the things that have evolved, we're not sitting in 2-hour trainings so much anymore. Man, I remember the harassment training I used to show. It was on a VHS tape back when I was internal HR 20 years ago. I was like, here, come sit in the conference room and watch this horrible VHS tape about harassment and what it means. And even back then, at the beginning, they'd say, it's hard to define sexual harassment, but you'll know it when you see it, right? Things have changed. So we want small, bite-sized pieces of micro learning, and I think we all do. This isn't a Gen Z thing. It's just the way things have evolved. We want blended learning. We want some gamification, maybe. We want media-rich formats. We want role-playing, game-playing, decision-making and problem-solving, ongoing learning, and just-in-time training, where like I need a piece of information right now. Where can I get it? Well, probably if I ask Google, the AI response might give me what I need. I do that a lot with cooking. But yeah, yes, shorter trainings are a sign of social media and reduced attention span. So we consume media differently. And even, I mean, if you think about like binge watching a Netflix show, for example, why, like, why doesn't that show just be one long movie? Why does it need to be broken into episodes? Well, because we need stopping points. We want to feel like we're consuming a show. It's kind of an interesting way to look at it, but even that, right? Let's see. We follow through with the majority of what you're saying, but we tend to have employees who have great potential but refuse to acknowledge their own flaws and work on them, constantly blaming others. These are the typically Gen Z. How do we help them reflect and grow when they have so much resistance? That is a really great question, Paula. So here's my answer. Um, Not taking feedback and being defensive is a performance problem. Just like if a customer service representative, let's say you have a telemarketing or not telemarketing, but like a phone center, a call center. Um, if you had people constantly blaming clients for their problems, someone says, my technology doesn't work, and the customer service rep says, well, it sounds like you did something. What button did you push? You would performance manage that and ultimately let them go if they didn't change, right? And you can treat this same behavior when it's internal. So it is a performance problem. So what you can talk to them about is, look, and so you want to talk about your perceptions, so if you're having a conversation and they're pushing back and blaming other people, then here's what I say to the people I coach who are bullies, right? Because they'll certainly say, well, they're just being sensitive. I don't do that. What you want to say is, you have the opportunity to own the feedback I'm giving you and make a change. And I'm asking you to make X, Y, and Z changes. And probably the only way you're going to make that change is if you stop blaming other people and own the feedback I'm giving you. It's your choice. And then if they don't change, then that's on them. Again, it becomes a performance problem. Another way of looking at it is leaning into your core values. I'm certain your company's core values don't have room for blaming other people. I'm certain your core values require, in some way, shape, or form, collaboration, learning from your mistakes. And so you could also lean on core values. That could be a more positive way to do it. That, hey, these are our core values, and um, this is the deal. We need you to live these core values. Hopefully that helps. And yes, nip bullying behavior quickly. The sooner you nip it, the easier it is to resolve. Okay, 63% of Gen Z think that AI integration in the workplace should be accompanied by training on soft skills. So they understand that they also need to communicate well. So I recommend that you deliver some of these types of training topics, and a lot of organizations don't. And then once you deliver these types of topics to all of your employees, then you need to do a part two and make sure that managers are trained on how to create a team environment of giving and receiving feedback, and how to create a team environment of psychological safety as the leader of that. Couple last things, and then we'll do our raffle. You all know, we've talked about it. Gen Z is refusing to put themselves in a place where they're unhappy and where their mental health is being challenged on the regular. There's a lot on this slide to understand. Let me talk you through it. So, organizational culture exists in these three areas: organizational behavior, individual behavior, and leadership team behavior. So, yes, Krista, Jenny, could you make a note? This slide with the training topics, could you add those training topics to the email that goes out when people download, or maybe we can just send it to the registrants. We'll get you that, Krista. And by the way, we do all of those training topics, so we'd love to be the ones who deliver that topic for you. Okay, so in terms of how your organization supports wellness, your organization, and we can do this slide too. Maybe we can send these two slides to you all. How about that? I'll be willing to share. So the organization has to make sure that it's providing adequate resources, that its systems and policies support turning it off at night, that if you're laying people off, that means you've got the same amount of work with less people. So being realistic, that means productivity is going to go down. Let's not hold people accountable for all of that work when they're missing others who used to help them do it, right? And so, really, this is when we're talking about wellness, organizations have to recognize that they're the reason people are burned out. So, giving people an app or half day Fridays isn't that's not solving the root cause of burnout. It's putting the onus on the employees to solve their own burnout. Yeah, those are band-aids. Thank you, Matt. So really taking a look at what are the root causes of the burnout that the organization is dealing with and how can we solve those. And then helping individuals understand that it's okay to say no, that it's okay if you call in sick. One question to ask yourself is when somebody says they're going on vacation, is the vibe kind of like, ugh, you're going on vacation, but we have so much work? Or is the vibe, awesome, do it, go on vacation, don't you dare check your email, right? What's the vibe when people say they're going on vacation? That'll tell you a lot about your culture. And then, of course, leadership needs to empower employees to have control over their well-being and acknowledge hard work and all of the things. So I'm just going to share, let's see, I'll just go straight to here so we have time for our raffle. Okay, Gen Z is shaping the future of work with bold expectations and new possibilities. And organizations that embrace their values and skills will attract that top talent and build innovative, inclusive, future-ready workplaces. So let's not be angry at Gen Z. Let's celebrate that they are calling attention to some really pretty terrible workplace norms that we've all been putting up with. And now it's time for all of us to enjoy our work environment so much more. All right, so Jenny, favor. Let's see. So Jenny sent me the message. So the book winners, are you ready? Drum roll, drum roll. Book winners, Janet Hardy, Kayla Thompson, and Jennifer Winter. You are our book winners. So you can either email info@civilitypartners.com or you can direct message the panelists. That's Jenny and Favor on the other side there. And they will make sure you get your books. Now, everybody's congratulating them. Hold on. Okay, the train the winner. So again, this is our Upstander training toolkit. It gives you the ability to download our slides, our facilitator's guide, our handout that goes to learners. It has videos from our trainers who have delivered this so that you can get some information from them. Those winners are Jessica Howell and Betsy Spetch. Did I say that right, Betsy? And Jenny will certainly email you. It's just a download, so you get that for free. That's $250 value. The rest of you, I do hope you'll take us up on our offer to buy this. Again, we charge thousands of dollars for this training. I'm selling it to you for $250 so that you can use it and reuse it over and over again. It's white labeled. You can put your own logos in there. You can switch it up. So I do encourage all of you. All right, so again, the QR code, it'll take you to all of these resources I offered up. Also, a bonus one on productive versus unproductive conflict. Maybe some of you can use that with your Gen Z employees that we've been talking about here that are sort of pushing back and placing blame. If you need some SHRM or HRCI credit, there is your information. And with that, we have a couple minutes left for any kind of last final questions. Jenny, I see Janet put her address in there for you. Again, book winners, please do email info@, or you can pop your address here in the chat to the hosts and panelists. Do you work with other gens? Deborah says. Yes, Deborah. So Civility Partners, we are an organizational development consulting firm. We focus on culture. We come in and help you address any of your cultural, situations, anything that's going on in your organization. We are happy to help talk with you about. And if we can't help you solve your particular issue, we certainly most likely have a resource for you to or referral for you. So thank you all so much. I really appreciated all of the conversation. I'm so glad that you all like this presentation so much. And I'll just put this here. I'm getting pretty active on Instagram these days, so show me some love there. And also follow me on LinkedIn. And again, thank you all. I loved all of the energy and conversation. I'm so thrilled. And have a great rest of your day and week and month and year.